This is a very famous urban legend. I remember around 8 years, when I saw it for the first time on the Linjia forum. I was shocked. Where is the source? It is impossible to verify. Some say that it comes from a novel Shanghai Ministry of Art and Culture. And some people claim that this is a real practical adaptation and do not delve into it. But I remember very well that in about 13 years, I saw the follow-up to this story again. And I don't know if someone deliberately wrote it, or if the story itself was like this. Today, I will share the full version with you. When I was little, there is an old man living next door to our house. The old man used to be a criminal policeman. Since the time of youth, there are some personal lifestyle issues involved. He took early retirement in the early 80s. He told me something. According to him, it was not found in the archives of the Shanghai Municipal Public Security Bureau. I don't know if it's true or not. But then I chatted with some old people from that era. I found out some things turned out to be real. Among them, the old man told me about a very peculiar case, and it continued for many years. The whole thing started in 1956. The tragedy of Wanning Road is about 1956 here. Wanning Road is also farmland and some farmhouses along the street, as well as a number of factory warehouses. The place was sparsely populated. There are few activities at night. At that time, it had just been planned to enter Pudwood district. It didn't take long for the district government to move to Puxiong Road. The old man was in his early 20s, just graduated from the police bar, was assigned to the criminal police team. In the middle of the night, the phone rang. There was a wheezing sound on the phone. Then a voice that is neither male nor female said, "Killed someone himself. I came to surrender myself." The sound was very strange, and there was a lot of noise on the phone. In those days, there are very few private calls, generally inside the factory, or a public phone. But pay phones, I couldn't hit it in the middle of the night. At that time, the old man asked, "Where is the person who called?" Said on the other side of the phone. He was at number 37, Lin's house, 3 blocks away from the Public Security Bureau. At that time, although the old man had just joined the criminal police, but I also know that the situation is serious, immediately reported to the captain on duty, Lao Huang. At the same time, the police station in the jurisdiction was notified. Subsequently, several criminal police officers who could be mobilized immediately in the bureau were dispatched. At that time, the road surface was very potholed. They went on a trike. Rushed to that neighborhood. It's pitch black. I couldn't hear anything. The old man had a flashlight with his colleague, who was with the police at the time. It took a long time to find number 37 Linjia's high. I saw that it was a small 2-story building, and with a yard. The group had just entered the courtyard. I saw a small whirlwind roll up fallen leaves on the ground, spin in place in the yard. The atmosphere was quirky. Captain Lao Huang asked loudly. There was no one in the house, but no one answered. There was no light in the house. The group went up and pushed the door. It was found that the wooden door was pressed against the inside. At this time, the police from the police station also arrived. They took a look at the situation. It turns out that the owner of this house lives. Before liberation, he fled to Taiwan. The current owner was transferred from Hebei to Shanghai. A man who came to work. The surname is Yi. There are 4 people in the family. The wife surnamed Yi is a cripple. There are 2 small children, 1 man and 1 woman. After listening to the report of the police, Captain Lao Huang is looking for something. Push the door open. The old man proposed to knock on the glass window to enter. After knocking on the glass window, as the youngest of the opposite sex at the time, the old man jumped in first. He was carrying a flashlight, but it didn't open when I first jumped into the house. After entering, he found the place where he was standing wet. There was a pungent smell of blood in the room. It's very dark and scared. At this time, the Captain Lao Huang also came in, but when he landed, he didn't stand firm, slipping and falling to the ground. Lao Huang also felt that something was wrong on the ground. Stand up and turn on your flashlight to take a look. His body was covered in blood. The old man said, "He's going to shake into a sieve." Fortunately, the Captain Lao Huang fumbled with the light switch. Then after turning on the lights, he saw an even more terrifying scene, where they were at that time. It was a small living room. It's about 4 square sizes. There was only a dining table and a copper chariot. I saw that the ground was full of dark red liquid. "It's not in the corner," the old man asked in fear. "Captain, what is it?" The captain is quite calm. "Tell him, this is human blood." At that time, the old man had just graduated. I've never seen this kind of battle. I was so scared that I almost peed my pants. After the door opens from the inside, the comrades from the police station took a look. I went back and reported to the administrative corps. Leave the old man and the captain behind. There are also 2 colleagues. Continue to survey the site. However, the weird thing is, this 2-story building, they searched up and down. Not a single one. Whose blood belongs on the earth? Where did the host go? Later, according to the medical examiner, the blood on the ground was at least 6 men. But there are only 4 people in this family. And the neighbors also said, the hostess of this house. I took my 2 children back to my parents' house a few months ago. So, who was the person who reported the crime in the middle of the night? Due to the heinous nature of the case, the Public Security Bureau set up a special task force to investigate, but I never had a clue. Until about a month after the case. Someday, the police of the police station in the jurisdiction received a report from the neighborhood committee. Say a few kids fighting after school. It was found that the door of number 37 of the Lin family house was open, but the scene of the crime was all affixed with a seal, and the man of that house was investigated. It was also confirmed that it was missing. The investigation team also went to the hostess's hometown. Family members also said, he never went back at all. So unless it's the owner who comes back, either that or the thief got in. Neighbors knew that there had been a murder there. So you won't go in. So the task force sent the old man that year. And comrades from the local police station. Let's go check it out. But something even weirder happened. When they entered the house, found the same as that night. The ground was still covered in dark brown human blood. Oddly enough, they heard the sound of children laughing on the 2nd floor. It was close to noon. The group immediately rushed to the 2nd floor. However, it was found that it was originally open to traffic on the 1st floor. It is placed at the 2nd staircase. And the entire 2nd floor was empty. No one at all. Back to the bureau. The old man reported the situation truthfully. Everyone wondered. It was during the Great Movement. Everyone thinks it's weird though, but no one dared to mention anything strange and confusing. Another 10 days or so passed. The notice from the police station said, there was a neighbor reaction. The night before the 37th of the neighborhood, the lights are lit up on the 2nd floor. So the leader of the task force deduced, number 37 of the Lin family house is likely to be the stronghold of the spies. It was decided to wait for an ambush overnight. It was a cold night. Everyone was lying in ambush around the house. In the middle of the night, suddenly the lights came on the 2nd floor. But to be precise, it's more like a firelight. At that time, the Captain Huang signaled everyone to split up. The 2 stayed outside, in case the agents escaped. The remaining 2 went into the house with him. The old man was also one of them. After entering the house, the blood on the 1st floor is gone. The 3 of them quietly walked up to the 2nd floor. At that time, the first person to go up to the 2nd floor was the Captain Lao Huang. He had just arrived on the 2nd floor. I was so busy that I turned around. The expression on his face was very strange. The old man rushed up to take a look. I was also stunned. The 2nd floor is completely different from usual. It became the living room of a large family. A big dining table. A snow-white arm hung down from the dining table. There are also bright red shoes lying on his arms. It drips to the floor. Just when the old man and the Captain Huang Mian were facing each other, the detective who was walking at the back suddenly shouted, "Ghosts!" He turned his head at the time. I saw that there seemed to be a shadow dragging the detective. The entire face of the detective was distorted with fear. In this result suddenly, the room heard the music of the teacher's gramophone and the laughter of small children. Just when the old man and the Captain Huang Zhang were at a loss, the lights went out suddenly. The sound in the house also stopped abruptly. Then he saw a red shadow flash in front of him. Follow the detective who walked at the end. There was a scream. Wait for someone outside to come in with a flashlight, the old man discovered. I didn't know what was going on with the Captain Lao Huang, already lying in the living room on the 1st floor. The old man was very flustered when he recalled this incident. Years later, I can still see it in his eyes. He was scared at the time. The person who stayed outside the door said later, waited outside for more than 10 minutes. There has been no movement inside. So I rushed in. The 3 detectives who went in together at that time. There were only 2 left. The last detective to go upstairs. It just disappeared out of thin air. The situation has become serious. At that time, criminal investigation experts in the Sub-Bureau and the city. There are also experts from the East China Military Sub-District and the Ministry of Public Security. They have all secretly come here to investigate. But there's nothing strange about the whole house. There aren't even secret passages or home walls or anything like that. Therefore, the spy is excluded, since the technology was not as developed at that time as it is now, so it can't be verified. Where did the call to the evening news come from? The missing detective. Later, it was reported that he died in the line of duty. Then the case was left unsolved. Left it all the time, because it's so weird. Therefore, the parties have also been transferred out of the criminal police team. A few years after that, only the old man remained in the criminal police team. After the Captain Huang went through that incident, mental abnormality all the time, he retired early. The bureau leaders demanded that it was strictly forbidden to talk about the events of that night. Hit that after that, number 37 of the Lin family house has been uninhabited. No one even dared to approach there during the day. However, it doesn't end there. In the winter of 1958, the masses reported a counter-revolutionary. This person's surname is Su, and he is usually a leatherman. At the time of investigation, this Su leather craftsman was a consistent Taoist. The so-called Consistent Tao is a reactionary feudal Taoist organization. It is said to be similar to the Wudali Road in the late Eastern Han Dynasty. Among them were quite a few people with thaumaturgy. It can be used to cure diseases with charms in a large market in Jiangsu and Zhejiang. So it's very harmful. After this Su Leatherman was caught, the list of Shanghai personnel who have always been in the road was explained. The name of the male owner of number 37 of the Lin family house actually appeared in it, Yi Xianghua. This matter has attracted the attention of the above. It's been 2 years. The incident at number 37 of the Lin family house has surfaced again, and he also gave an important clue. It was a month after the incident at number 37 of the Lin family's house. Leather craftsman Su once met with Yi Xianghua. That night, the atmosphere in the interrogation room was unusually solemn. Those involved in the interrogation were questioned from midnight until noon the next day. When he came out, he said angrily, "This hard-mouthed counter-revolutionary. It's just nonsense." The old man did not participate in the interrogation at that time, but years later, he consulted the transcripts of that time. The interrogator asked, "How did you meet?" Su Pai will answer, "I have known Yi Xianghua since I was a child. At that time, it was the 13th year of the Republic of China. That is, in 1924. The interrogator said, "Nonsense on Yi Xianghua's ID card. He was born in 1933. How could you have known each other at that time?" Su Pai will swear, "I was indeed at that time, in Hunan Funyo Mountain. That is, Yi Xianghua, who he met in his hometown. And the last time he saw Yi Xianghua, it was the Temple of the Emerald Buddha in November 1956. The interrogator asked, "What did he tell you? What is his identity in you?" Su Pai will answer, "Yi Dehufa has long since withdrawn from the Consistent Tao organization. I just said hi to him. But he's not old at all. And more than when I first met him. He looks a lot younger." The interrogator asked, "How can it be? Could you be miscognizing someone?" The cobbler replied, "No way. He had a mole on his face. So I knew it was him as soon as I saw it." That's all there is to it in the dossier. Unexpectedly, Yi Xianghua turned out to be a person who had always been in the organization to protect the law. But when was he born? Is what the cobbler said true? This thing, after the cobbler was violently discharged in the detention center, and a heavy cloud of relic. The tanner's violent finish was very strange. The 3 people who were watching with him at the time say in unison, "The cobbler that night, a man against the wall." A lot of inexplicable things were said. It's like arguing with someone. Later, it seemed to be begging for something. They all got nervous as leathermen. Woke up the next day, only to find that the cobbler was still sitting facing the wall. But the man has already died. The detention center later conducted a forensic examination. There were no scars on the cobbler's body. The strangest thing is, his face was unusually ruddy. No signs of poisoning were found. However, according to the prisoner who is also on surveillance, Su Pai will face the same wall. There is a strange line of mosquitoes, but it didn't take long to disappear. Those strange mosquitoes are a lot like charms. They don't understand either. A bizarre incident, plus a bizarre death. Things get even more confusing. The task force decided to make a final effort. After reviewing all the files of Yi Xianghua, amazing discovery. Yi Xianghua's father is also called Yi Xianghua. Moreover, there is no death record in this old Yi immortal kingdom. So does the leatherman know Yi Xianghua's father? According to the description of the cobbler, when he knew Yi Xianghua. It's almost 40 years old. By 1956, this old Yi immortal kingdom should be an old man in his 70s. It is absolutely impossible to be Yi Xianghua, who was in his 30s. There are more and more questions. The task force decided to divide the troops into two routes. On the one hand, Yi Xianghua is wanted in Shanghai. On the other hand, special teams were dispatched. Go to Funyo Mountain, the hometown of Su Leatherman, to investigate and collect evidence. Funyo Mountain was the place where Li Zicheng haunted. It is said that there are dragon weapons. Before liberation, the island is very rampant in the Funyo Mountain area. There are also many altars set up on the island in the mountains. After liberation, with the repeated encirclement and suppression of the PLA, Funyo Mountain returned to calm. And the hometown of Supijiang is located on the periphery of Funyo Mountain, a place called Sujiaku. There are only about a dozen families in this village, so the scope of the investigation is not large. The old man also participated in this evidence collection that year. After the task force arrived at Sujiaku, after many inquiries, I knew the ancestor of the Leatherman. It used to be a big family. Later, because Su Leatherman's grandfather was obsessed with counting, suddenly, he moved to the small village of Funyo Mountain to settle down. At that time, the investigation team also asked some things about Yi Xianghua. There was an old man who said he remembered the man. At that time, this Yi Xianghua was a feng shui gentleman, and he has a close relationship with the grandfather of the cobbler. The task force has investigated before. Yi Xianghua's ancestral home is indeed Bazhou, Hebei. Then I talked to Shanghai on the phone. Decided to go to Bazhou, Hebei once. Let's see what kind of relationship Yi Xianghua and the Su family have. The task force came to Bazhou, Hebei. According to the documents of the Big Case Museum, it turned out that the ancestors of Yi Xianghua came to Bazhou from the end of the Ming Dynasty and inherited the position of the temple pillar of the local Jade Emperor Temple. The position of the temple pillar of the Jade Emperor Temple was a 4-grade legal sage in the Ming Dynasty. Documentation. The founding patriarch of the Jade Emperor Temple was a northern Taoist sect of cultivating immortals, a disciple of Lu Jiming. This Lu Jiming was a very famous figure in the middle of the Ming Dynasty. It is rumored that he has obtained 3 volumes of the Nine Heavens Temple method. According to this temple law, people can cultivate immortals to get it, have the ability to call the wind and rain. Local chronicles. There are also records of the immortals of the Night Immortal Kingdom in Bazhou. Of course, task force for these technologies treat it only as folklore. Besides, the task force found the father of the Night Immortal Kingdom is indeed called the Night Immortal Kingdom. Weirdly, the grandfather of the Night Immortal Kingdom is actually called the Night Immortal Kingdom. There are no valuable clues left. That's it. It even shrouded the gentleman of Yi Xianghua with a layer of fog. At that time, news came from the Shanghai Command Center. It is said that during that time, someone saw Yi Xianghua near Lenghu Mountain in Jiangxi. And there are some strange things happening at number 37 of the Lin family's house. So some of the people of the task force went to Lenghu Mountain in Jiangxi. The rest went back to Shanghai. Continue to follow up on the incident at number 37 of Lin's house. The old man was the group of people who rushed back to Shanghai. I learned about it when I returned to Shanghai. At that time, a new workers' village began to be built near the Lin family's house. At the time of the demolition of number 37 Lin's house, a large vat was excavated 3 meters underground. Inside the vat turned out to be the wife and 2 children of the missing Night Fairy Kingdom. Weirdly, the wives and children of the Night Immortal Kingdom are not corrupt. Their physiology is like that of a living person. It doesn't look like he's been dead for more than 2 years at all, but there was no sign of life. Although it is impossible to explain this phenomenon, but after all, 3 people died. It's the Interpol team after a lapse of 2 years. The Lin family house number 37 incident was characterized as a major criminal case. Looks. The suspect Yi Xianghua was fully convicted of killing his wife and destroying the door. As a result, an A-level wanted warrant was issued to the whole country. After the old man returned to Shanghai, when I go to the scene of the incident again, number 37 of the Lin family house has been razed to the ground, and that where the outline was dug out, it turned out to be the location of the original living room. But number 37 of the Lin family house still has a lot of mysteries, still not unraveled. Where did the missing detective go? All sorts of strange phenomena in the original house. How to explain it? 2 weeks later, there was finally a major breakthrough in the case. The Jiangxi squad is in cooperation with the Jiangxi Public Security Department, successfully in Jiangxi Lenghu Mountain, a dilapidated Taoist temple site nearby, capture the Night Fairy Kingdom. and escorted back to Shanghai. Due to the peculiarities of the case of Night Immortal Kingdom, he was imprisoned in a special one-man court. Interrogation experts dispatched by the Ministry of Public Security. Interrogation. The interrogation process was fraught with difficulties. Yi Xinggua's whole person seemed to have some kind of mental illness. Don't talk at all. Ask him something. He was staring blankly at the ceiling. What's even more incredible, since Yi Xinggua was escorted back to Shanghai, it has never been outdated. Didn't even drink water. Experts from the task force and the Ministry of Public Security on Yi Xinggua. Good thing for more than a month. No progress. In the process, Yi Xinggua was carried out successively. 3 different levels of psychiatric evaluation. At the time of an X-ray, everyone present, almost all of them were scared half to death. Because the X-rays show Yi Xinggua has no brain tissue. A person with no brain tissue. Is it still human? If not, so what exactly is Yi Xinggua? I asked the old man, is this the end of the case? The old man said, the rest of this is a secret, but the one who still knows the secret. Basically, that's all he has left. It was one night in April 1959. The criminal police took Yi Xinggua to the scene for the last time. The sea breeze was not light that night. It's even a little blinding. When they entered number 37, the Lin family house, which had become a ruin, took office. Yi Xinggua suddenly burst out laughing. The laughter was weird. Meanwhile, the person who entered the inauguration found, and the armed police soldiers who were in charge of guarding the perimeter of the ruins also found out. It's impossible to see clearly. The criminal police in the ruins of number 37, in the Night Immortal Kingdom and others. The old man was also on the periphery that night. When you see this, he wanted to go to the other side of the fog and see. But when he walked in, he found out. In the mist, there was a golden light on the tree. The old man later learned, the golden light was emitted by the floating spell, and he couldn't get close to these floating spells at all, not to mention digging into the ruins. After the fog clears, they immediately rushed in to investigate, only to find that the Night Fairy Kingdom was gone, and the 3 detectives who went in were also unconscious. Later, according to the comatose detective, recalled, they saw the fog rise up. Immediately, he used a gun to resist the Night Immortal Kingdom. Unexpectedly, I saw it soon. A terrifying sight that makes the scalp tingle. Number 37 of the Lin family's house that has been demolished. It turned out to be again. And where they stood, it turned back into the living room it used to be. At this time, the laughter of children came from the 2nd floor again. But the Night Immortal Kingdom seemed to be floating. Sneak into the wall and disappear. They immediately shot into the wall. But there was a lot of force bouncing out of the wall. Knocked them into marriage in an instant. The old man said, these dictations are not believed at all. Therefore, Yi Xinggua was finally defined as a murder case. In the official archives, Yi Xinggua is to kill the whole family. Then he committed suicide. In number 37 of the Lin family's house. Later, it was also converted into the so-called 20,000 houses. That is, the workers' new village. However, the truth of this case, it's still confusing. Who is Yi Xinggua? Is he really the murderer? There is a saying that Yi Xinggua inherited Lu Jiming's, those 3 volumes of the 9 Heaven Secret Method, thus get immortal. As for the fantastical sights that the detectives saw, maybe it's the trick in the countdown. And his wife and children should have been immortalized with him into another space, so their bodies don't decay. This also explains why Yi Xinggua with his father and the grandfather of the same name, maybe they're the same Night Fairy Kingdom at all. After the old man said this, I didn't want to say any more, even if I chased him over and over again and asked, what happened to the Night Immortal Kingdom? In the end, I found it. He is still 3 rooms and 7 people. Until one time, he led me past an alley on Anyuan Road. He happened to be tired that day. Sitting on the side of the road, lit a cigarette. Smoke it while you can, while staring at the alley in a daze. Suddenly he spoke. I've had a case here before. Speaking of which, it has a lot to do with the person in the Night Immortal Kingdom. I'll hear it. I couldn't wait to ask. Did the country of one heart really appear later? The old man replied to me with a smoke ring. Don't you be in a hurry. Let me start with a story about human heads. I was young at the time. Timid is also small. I was a little scared when I heard it, but I can't help but want to hear it. The story of the human head. It happened around the winter of 1963. The location is in the hall of Anyuan Road. This road hall can be worn from Anyuan Road to Changsha Road, past to the Longevity Road. It is the 6 longs of national sleep. Many textile workers live on Anyuan Road. The old man pointed to a courtyard at the entrance of the alley and said, "That's where the story happened." Then he asked me, "Can you spot the difference in this house?" Truly, the house looks a bit old. Next to it are some illegally built houses, but only this house has a clear courtyard, and it's a bit more magnificent. The old man told me. This compound is number 139 on Yuan Road. 139 on Yuan Road. It is one of the earliest houses in the area. It originally belonged to a rich peasant, and in 1963 at that time, there are 3 families living in this compound. Only Westminster Township has been unoccupied. At that time, the old man had already been sent to the police station, just Guan on Yuan Road. One day he found out when he was sorting out his household registration. In fact, there are 4 families at number 139 on Yuan Road, but this 4th family seems to have been liberated. No one has ever lived there. This family is a believer. At that time, on Yuan Road belonged to the workers' gathering place. The inhabitants are also very dense with each other. The old man was also relatively idle at that time, so I often go from house to house in that area. That's why it is. One day he used to chat with a few old people. An old man told him, "Do you know who the original head of household number 139 was?" The house turned out to be the home of a man with a surname. The old man continued, "Speaking of this surname, he turned out to be nothing more than an ordinary peasant on the north bank of Suzhou Creek. It is Waningmu who helps people do long-term work. But one day, when he was doing long work there, dig a stone out of the ground. Reputedly, there was something carved into that stone. It was at that time that I met a businessman who came to Shanghai from other places. The merchant bought the stone at a high price. Maybe the stone was an antique from the past," another old man said. "Anyway, since then, this surname has developed. There's a lot of land here. It used to be his family." The old man asked, "So why is this house unoccupied now? What about the descendants of his family?" The old man said, "The surname too has a daughter who should be married, although occasionally come back, but the outsiders should be the ones who don't have the Tujia inside." After this chat, the old man didn't take it too seriously. Until one day shortly after, the security section of the number 6 National Factory made a phone call, said that there was a murder in the factory. After all, the old man was born as a criminal policeman, so I called a few colleagues, immediately rushed to the number 6 National Factory, and took control of the scene. Security section officer, let Aunt Gu describe the situation in the Muji Witness Canteen. The canteen of the number 6 National Factory is in an alley next to the factory. Today at noon, after the workers finished eating, Aunt Gu found 2 Axiu, who was in charge of washing vegetables, make a stove in a small room. "Looks like it's cooking something," Aunt Gu said. At that time, it smelled like burning a ladder fort and a special incense, but the pork supply was tight at the time. Aunt Gu wondered if 2 Axiu had stolen the public's meat. So he went into the house and asked 2 Axiu, but 2 Axiu ignored him for a long time and continued to fan the stove, as if he was afraid that the fire would not be strong enough. Aunt Gu said, "She was on fire on the spot." Directly grabbed Toaxiu's fan, but Toashu mouthed inside, "I don't know what I'm humming." No matter what Aunt Gu does, they didn't move. Aunt Gu directly put the lid on the pot, lifted up. There was a hot breath in the air, and the smell is very weird, more fragrant than stew. When Aunt Gu said this, "It's also a little disgusting," she described. There was a human head floating in the pot. She fainted with fright. When he woke up, it was discovered that Toashio was missing. It was reported to the security section. The old man asked, "What kind of person is this Toashio?" The security section said for the time being, after understanding and verifying, "This Toashio is a Shanghainese, but he married in Suzhou. A few years ago, I returned to Shanghai. It is said that there is a mental problem. At that time, he was arranged to come to the factory to do chores. Usually there is nothing wrong with looking at it." "Do you know who that head is?" The old man asked again. The security section said for the time being, "The man's head was already boiled. I can't see it clearly." The old man realized, "You have to search for Tuashio right away." So he called the branch office. It just so happened that one of his old colleagues was on duty that day. So that afternoon, the sub-bureau immediately sent someone to the scene to collect evidence. He also instructed the security section to keep quiet. Then the situation was reported. Let people be strictly inspected at the station and dock respectively. On the night after the crime, Old Man Zhang, who patrols the night on Yuan Road, said, "There is a light on in the west wing of number 139 on Yuan Road." The people inside kept singing and jujuking. The neighbors were so noisy that they couldn't sleep. The old man that night, because of the incident of the National 6, also on duty all the time, so he grabbed the flashlight, ride a bicycle to number 139 on Yuan Road. When you enter the door, he suddenly thought that the owner of number 139 should be surnamed Pooh. Isn't there a daughter? The natural professional vigilance of the detective told him, tonight's thing, it is likely that there is a connection with the events of the National 6 field. After entering the hospital, I saw a few men standing at the door of the Xishan house. Said to the old man, "Comrade policeman, you're finally here. We're going to have an early shift tomorrow. Listen, how can people sleep?" The old man approached. I could only hear a hoarse female voice in the West Country house, singing in front of the Arhud with protective gear, and I kept repeating those few sentences. The lights in the house are not very bright. Maybe it's an oil lamp lit. The old man asked, "Have you ever been there?" The psychotic woman locked the door. "We can't get in at all. I don't know what the hell is going on in there." The men replied. The old man asked again, "What is this woman's name?" The men said, "Her name is Tuoshio." The old man thought to himself. It turned out that Tuaxiu had taken refuge in the old house. Given the current situation, he immediately evacuated his neighbors outside. Then he called Old Man Zhang to the police station. Tell the other comrades to come and open the door, and report the matter to the separation. The old man continued to exert force. Go to the top of the dilapidated gate of the inner mountain, but I guess it's something of wood or something that is used to resist it. He couldn't stand it alone. However, there is a place in the glass window next to it where the newspaper is pasted. He then punctured the newspaper. Look inside. By the dim oil lamp, he saw Tuasius sitting with his back to the door. It seems that the head of the river hangs very low. All he could see was his back. He was facing a stove, top a pot. It looks like something is burning in the pot. The lid of the pot is open. A lot of heat was coming out of the pot, covered the entire room with a layer of mist. Tuashu was still singing, although the tune is the tune of Luohan money. But the old man heard him sing on and off. Don't take it back. You know what? The old man thought to himself, could it be that this is Tuaxiu's crime again? He thought directly. The inside of the pot may be a human head. Tuaxiu appears to be a murderer. Soon a few detectives came. Several of them pushed the wooden door open. I saw that Tuaxiu didn't seem to hear it. Keep humming. One of the detectives poked Tuaxiu in the back with a gun. Warned Tuaxiu not to move. You've been arrested. But this poke, Tuashu actually fell straight down. The old man said, the rest of the matter is simply that. A horror that ordinary people can't imagine. It was in the room at the time. Except for Tuaxiu, just the three detectives. They saw Tuashu fall. I was surprised to find that it was a corpse with a house. However, there was no blood on the wound. And this time, there were still people in the room singing those few lines of opera. The detectives were in shock. Discover the sound. It turned out to be from the inside of a steaming pot. Issued. I saw a human head tumbling in the pot. It's already a bit burnt, but the human head that showed the skull. The mouth sings. Mr. Yi, you don't take it back. My dad wouldn't. Do you know? Suddenly, a whirlwind blew. The oil lamp was scraped out. Inside the southwest corner of the room, a long sigh rang out. A few detectives retreated to the door. A few minutes passed. They hurriedly turned on their flashlights. But there was nothing but them in the house. There are no other burning figures. I don't know who made this sigh. At dawn, some experts from the city bureau also came. There was no sound in the room anymore. After Tuaxiu's killing, committed suicide in fear of sin. That's what experts were able to conclude. As for the story of the head singing, it can only be said that it was a few criminal police officers at that time. Hallucinations that arise from being too nervous. Although the people who heard the singing at that time, it's not just these few detectives, but this matter is still closed in this way. And the body of the person Tuaxiu killed in Guimin's 6 scenes. It was also found later. The victim was a businessman who had come to Shanghai from other places. Died in a small hotel at the Old North Station, said the hostel attendant. On that day, Tuaxiu had hurried out of this person's room. But there was no strange sound coming from the whole city in the room. Just when he left. In his hand, he held a travel belt with the word Shanghai printed on it. The criminal investigation team checked the list of guests. It was discovered that the traveler's name was Night Fairy Country. It was Shandong Dazhou people who came to Shanghai to purchase daily necessities. Seeing this name, the old man was clever at that time, because this name was too familiar, although it was a little different from Yixianghua. So how could Tu Axiu be cut off by someone? Who was the one in the room who sighs? In the lyrics, Mr. Yi wants to ask Tu Axiu what it take. How can the head sing? This raises a lot of questions. After Tu Axiu's death, the old man said that at that time, he directly linked this incident to the Lin family house incident in his mind, and he always couldn't figure out why this series of things happened around here. What kind of place is this? Is feng shui bad? Later, when Tu Axiu's ex-husband came to meet him from Suzhou, the old man had a little communication with him, and he had a little understanding of many things. Tosha's ex-husband said, Ashu's father's fortune. It is the stone that the old people talked about before. Actually, it's not a piece. It's two pieces. There are many tadpole patterns carved on the stone. Can't understand it at all. His father-in-law, that is, Ashu's father, the businessman I met at the time. It's the Night Fairy Country. This Night Fairy Kingdom seems to know. The stone is in the hand of the old man. Went straight to the door. 30 yellow croakers were given. The shot is very generous. But the old man was careful at the time. Just say that there is only one stone in the hand. It is said that Yi Xianghua took a stone at that time. He left Shanghai in a hurry. Until last year. Suddenly, a man came to Tu Axiu. Asked him for stones. Ashio after his father's death. I kept another stone in the old house. He had no idea. Why did his father die so much? Be sure to take care of this stone. The old man told him before he died. The man surnamed Yi said it when he left Shanghai. He knew that the stone was in the hands of the old man. It's just that he has very important things to do. So it will definitely come and go in a few years. Also threatened, the old man too said. If the stone is sold to someone else, the lives of his entire family would end at the hands of someone else. At that time, when Yi Xianghua came to Suzhou, he still looks like he's 40 years old. Tu Axiu is very strange. Because at that time, when his father met Yi Xianghua, this man is already in his 40s. Therefore, Tu Axiu couldn't confirm the identity of this Yi Xianghua. He has always refused to tell the whereabouts of the stone. Since then, Tu Axiu began to be in a trance. Often go out in the middle of the night. When I came back, always full of kidney scars. Gradually, her husband couldn't take it anymore. So I divorced him. Unexpectedly, Tu Axiu suddenly decided to return to Shanghai one day. Later, he basically had no contact with Tu Axiu. The old man thought to himself, maybe the other half of the stone. It's still in the old house at number 139 on Yuan Road. If you use this stone, it is entirely possible to lure the Night Immortal Kingdom into the bait. Maybe it's more appropriate to call him the Night Immortal Kingdom. In this way, the truth of the case in Linjia's hide can be revealed. But at that time, the old man is no longer a criminal policeman, no longer in charge of criminal cases. So he just thought about it curiously. You're here. I don't understand it. The head of Yi Xianghua. Didn't you cook it for Tu Axiu? The old man said. They found it. Just a headless corpse. And the human head that was boiled. I couldn't make out who it was. I can't confirm it. The one who died was Yi Xianghua. He has always thought. Yi Xianghua is a person. Not so easy to solve. Because he's really a demon or something. The old man said that he later went to number 139 on Yuan Road, and investigated several times before and after, and found a convenience in the house of Zixiang Feng, but did not find the other stone at all. Later, in the summer of 1964, the well in the yard was about to be renovated for running water, and in the process of cleaning the well, a peculiar stone was dug up. The old man said that at that time, he looked at the stone carefully, and saw that the stone was red all over, the texture was round, and the stone was densely carved with many bucket patterns. The old man handed over the stone to the Cultural Relics Management Department at that time. I secretly expanded the text. I found an old professor named Mr. Tian to take a look. It is said that this Tian teacher was young. He has systematically studied Chinese occultism, so the old man thought, this thing must not be difficult for him. Mr. Tian lives in Chaoyang New Village. Teacher Tian put on his glasses, take a closer look at the tabin he brought, raised his head and looked at him in amazement. Ask where this thing came from. The old man gave the award to the cause. Teacher Tian groaned back. This thing is very important for those who are cultivators. It's a pity that there is only the bottom half. The old man asked, what is the text on it? Teacher Tian said, there is a kind of secret text in Taoism, commonly known as the Book of Heaven. In fact, it is a kind of cipher text. It is used to tell some dense Taoist knowledge. He said when he was younger, I learned a little from an old Taoist in Maoshan. Judging from this, he would have been. This is Taishan Laochun. That is, when Lao Tzu was in the early cold ancient Kansai district. Tell how to turn the universe upside down. Something that flies in the flesh. But what is said above is very obscure. Even if you understand the text. But not an insider. I don't know how to use it. Let's talk about these things now. It's all feudal dross. Who would believe that Cheng Xian got this statement? The old man thought to himself, this stone is so important. It seems that the Knight Immortal Kingdom will not give up. An ominous premonition came over him. Modern technology. There is nothing more than a person like Yi Xianghua. It seems that you still have to find people in the same way. To deal with Yi Xianghua, let him stop. But for a long time, Yi Xianghua did not appear again. So what happened to the remaining stone? I asked the old man. The old man squinted and recalled. The stone was later placed in the temple. Although it is a Taoist thing, but at that time, due to the Great Movement began, cultural relics administrations in many districts have been brought down. So these things are all put in some temples. Because of that time, the temple of the Emerald Buddha has been turned into a warehouse. The monks were also driven home. Later in the spring of 1968, the Jade Buddha Temple is located in Laosu, a member of the Right Neighborhood Committee. When riding a bicycle past the entrance of the Jade Buddha Temple, a man who looked like a little monk came out of the foot door. Laosu is very strange. The monks all went home quickly, where a little monk ran out in the middle of the night, and he came and told him to stop. The little monk ignored him either. Walk into an alley. It's gone. Laosu hurriedly followed. That alley is a dead end. At the end is the enclosure of a teacher's villa. It's pretty high. Laosu chased to the wall. I saw the little monk stop. He threw a small bag in his hand into the wall. He stood still. Laosu stepped forward and said, sneaky in the middle of the night. What do you want to do? Also run. Catch me now. But Laosu patted the little monk on the shoulder. The little monk fell to the ground in response. Laosu fixed his eyes. It turned out to be a bunch of broken steps, and a mop only. It was almost 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. Laosu was already scared into a cold sweat, but just now he saw it clearly. It's a little monk. Laosu knew that he was hitting a ghost. Laosu is also an old party member, although he wanted to report the crime, but a thought of it. If he will just see the thing. Tell others the truth. Others must be crazy. Locked him up. So Laosu never said it. And the old man is good and old Su is there. Fall below them in turn. Laosu told this story. At that time, the old man asked, did you see he lost anything? Laosu said, I don't know what it is, but it looks pretty heavy. The old man then kept an eye on it. I went to ask the comrades who were in charge of the warehouse of the Jade Buddha Temple. Finally asked about the stone. It is indeed at the temple of the Emerald Buddha. The old man asked the other party to look it up. Soon the other party replied. The stone was gone. The old man thought to himself. Could it be that Yi Xianghua has reappeared? The old man went to find out. The situation of the villa that Laosu said. That villa has been vacant for a long time. The owner of the villa was also beaten as a capitalist. The house was also raided. So that villa is basically unattended. So it's hard to talk about that night. Whoever grabs the other end. But not long after, the old man received a letter. The postmark on the envelope was sent by the owner. The address is a P.O. box. Found after querying. It turned out to be a psychiatric hospital at the back gate of Zhongshan Park. The signature is Mao Weigua. The letter just said that he wanted to see him. The old man thought it was strange at the time. Yes, he never knew Mao Weigua. Why did this person want to see him? So, out of curiosity, one Sunday, he went to that mental hospital. You came to see Mao Weigua. No one has come to see him for a long time. And the doctor in the hospital said, who are you? The old man showed his identity as a police officer at the police station, and the doctor took the old man directly to Mao Weigua's room. The old man asked the doctor, who is this Mao Weigua? The doctor said, this Mao Weigua has been living here since the beginning of liberation. He is a psychotic and severely paranoid. But on weekdays, it's also peaceful. I just like to read books alone. It is said that he was a university professor before liberation. Others say that he is a very famous feng shui master. But I've been coming to this hospital for more than 10 years. But a person who often watches it says stupidly, to present something. The old man heard these 2 words. My heart moved. Mao Weiguo lives alone on the 4th floor. A small ward in the far corner. The small ward is also clean. The smell of books is pervasive, because the whole room is almost full of books. The doctor said as soon as he got closer, Mao Weiguo, someone came to see you. Mao Weiguo was about 50 years old. He held the old man. Suddenly laughed. Said to himself, I'm really good at kung fu. The old man said, Mao Weiguo, how do you know mine? Mao Weiguo said leisurely, the old man's real name is Yuan Haishan. Now he's a psychopath. The old man knew when he heard this. This Yuan Haishan is definitely not an ordinary person. Nor is he an ordinary psychopath. Mao Weiguo suddenly asked with a smile, homosexuals. Do you remember the police call from the Lin family's house? How could you not remember? That call to the police was the beginning of the events in the Night Immortal Kingdom. The old man asked urgently, what do you know? Yuan Haishan. That is, Mao Weiguo said with a smile. That's what I called. The old man said, Yuan Haishan, if you know what's going on, be honest. Don't fool me. You've been in a psychiatric hospital. How did you find out about the Lin family's house? I figured it out. Hey. Yuan Haishan said with a strange smile. The old man asked with a cold stare at him. What else do you know about the Lin family's house? Yuan Haishan said with a smile. My old friend, Mr. Yi Xianghua wants to become an immortal. Does this matter? The old man asked again. So how did you make the call here? Yuan Haishan smiled mysteriously. Take out a noodle tray from under the bed. The old man couldn't cry or laugh, and said, don't tell me. This is your phone. Yuan Haishan said, Comrade is surprised by this. Do you know that there is a kind of spell in the Maoshan tree, called the Golden Basin Lighting Method? You can transmit sound from thousands of miles. Not only can you transmit sound, but you can also see the image. Yuan Haishan said again, I just think that the old man is acting a little too much, and the 9 Heaven Secret Scroll is not a good thing in his hands. Besides, he still wants to get Hong Xiuquan's raw dragon deer. It seems that he doesn't just want to get thousands, you know what I mean, right? At first, the old man thought that Yuan Haishan was starting to be paranoid again. But to the back, he couldn't help but want to listen. Yuan Haishan began to slowly come and go. 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. There is an immortal named Chen Tuan. Have you heard of it? This Chen Tuan is in addition to cultivating immortals. He is also proficient in the art of the emperor. Northern Song Dynasty Taizu Zhao Kuangyin. It was the night of the emperor who was achieved under his guidance. Chen Tuan knew that Zhao Kuangyin would not let him go after the incident. So he hid to the top of Huashan Mountain to retreat. Legend has it that after his ascension, I have studied all my life how to achieve the hegemony of the emperor. The vertical method is carved into 2 stones. This is the origin of the dragon department. That is, the 2 stones that the believers dug out of the ground. As for Yi Xinghua's ancestor Lu Zhiming has studied Taoism all his life, but there was never a big success. In his old age, he happened to find a stone chamber in Huashan. The stone room hides 3 things left by Chen Tuan. One is the sword of 10,000 flowers. One is the 9 Heaven Secret Scroll. There is also one thing that is the dragon department. But he never understood the secret of the dragon deer. So Lu Zhiming became an immortal. Combine these 3 things. It was passed on to 3 apprentices. The big apprentice Yuaning City got the sword of 10,000 flowers. Second apprentice Yi Dingtian got the 9 Heaven Secret Scroll. And the raw dragon deer was passed on to the 3 apprentices. Gudingtong. Surely you have already guessed it. Yi Dingtian is the immortal of Yi Immortal Kingdom. The old man nodded. And you are the descendant of Yuaning City. Yuan Haishan did not deny it. So how could Shenglonglu have anything to do with Hong Xiuquan? Exiled to Shanghai again. Yuan Haishan said, Hong Xiuquan swore an oath today. Do you know what it is for? In fact, it has nothing to do with what God worships at all. It's because of Hong Xiuquan's cousin. Hong Renda's wife is Gu Dingtong's descendant. Gu Jiaqiong's power for generations. All over the world, the tree is a famous family. Finally figured out the magic method of the first half of the dragon deer. And after Hong Xiuquan swore an oath, quickly get half of the rivers and mountains. That is, it relied on this half of the dragon tomb. But because of the descendants of the Gu family, I have never penetrated the remaining half of the tomb of the living dragon. Hong Xiuquan did not succeed in making it to the end. That year, after the Tianjin was captured, the first batch of Hunan generals who rushed into the palace of the Heavenly King decided Hong Xiuquan's coffin. The 2 stones were placed next to the corpse. But the Hunan army did not understand the value of this stone at all. So one of them was a general named Lin Tianxiang. Because they are the thinnest and smallest, so only these 2 stones were grabbed. After Lin Tianxiang resigned, he came to Shanghai to settle on the north bank of Suzhou Creek. And the Lin family house is actually the settlement of the Lin family. And these 2 stones. Later, I didn't know which unfilial descendant of the Lin family was. Feel free to dispose of it in the field. Until the old man dug it out. The old man asked, "So how did Ji Xianghua know that this stone appeared in Shanghai?" Yuan Haishan said, "I can figure out what he did. Couldn't he be counted as where the birth dragon deer appeared? With his more than 100 years of preaching, these are all trivial." The old man was shocked. Yi Xianghua is already more than 100 years old. The Farsi Mountain Road. In fact, they are the Yi family. Really understand the 9 days. There is also a Yi immortal kingdom. Yi Xianghua and my great-grandfather. It's still a friend. As for what age he is. How long have you lived? I don't know. But I know. Yi Xianghua is actually already counted. The character of the Earth Fairy. It's a pity that he can't lose the thoughts of the world. The old man asked, could it be that he has already become an immortal? The Farsi Mountain Road. Why is Yi Xianghua willing to be a temple pillar in the Jade Emperor Temple? Do you know? Because he was waiting for the right moment. When the Japanese invaded our China, he thinks the time is ripe. That's why he reappeared. If the raw dragon deer is obtained by him, I'm afraid the world is going to be in chaos again. Yuan Haishan said this. A look of melancholy. The old man was in a fog by him at that time. But it sounds. This explains what Yi Xianghua is doing. A lot of irrationalities. But what a delusional psychopath says. What's true inside? What is fake? Who knows? Yuan Haishan continued. I figured out that you were the one who could restrain the Night Immortal Kingdom. So back then, I'll use the Golden Basin to illuminate the spiritual method first. Remind you about the Lin family's house. You know the rest of the road. Where the hell has gone? The old man thought to himself. This madman may have real skills. These details. It is impossible for outsiders to know. So the old man told him. The strange thing that Lao Su encountered. Yuan Haishan listened. Asked, did you find a mop and a pile of rags? Look inside my room. There was a mop. There were also some clothes that I wore badly. Yesterday I spelled these things. Turned into a little monk. Got the stone back for me. It's called ghostless transportation. Yuan Haishan looked very proud. The old man exclaimed. Then that stone is with you. This is an artifact. You have to be taught. Yuan Haishan said very seriously. This is something I can only teach today. The old man listened to his answer. I was stunned. Yuan Haishan then laughed wildly. The doctor ran in. Said to the old man, homosexuals. That's all for today. He was sick again. Then I heard Yuan Haishan laughing and scolding. Yi Xianghua, you dead ghost. You think that the soldier sister will become an immortal. You can live forever. I have the sword of 10,000 flowers in my hand. Even if you become a Deluogene immortal, you can't escape. Yuan Haishan began to speak incoherently. When the old man left the room, he suddenly rushed up, grabbed the old man and say, I'm telling you, where is the sword of 10,000 flowers? You take him and kill Yi Xianghua. He scrambled from under the bed, take out a wooden stick, hand it to the old man and say, the sword of 10,000 flowers is here. Take it and kill him. Can't make him emperor. The old man took the stick, smiled helplessly. When the old man left the mental hospital, I kept thinking about what Yuan Haishan said. When you passed through Zhongshan Park, it was already very dark. As he passed through a wood, suddenly, I heard someone inside sighing. The old man asked alertly, who is it? This time, a thick fog rose from the surroundings. The old man discovered. All of a sudden, it was all dark. I also heard the sound of the teacher's gramophone singing. The Long Qin returned at once. The night they went to Lin's house. The old man said, when he came back to the mountain, I found out that he was back again, on that staircase that leads to the second floor. And his colleague who should have disappeared, grabbed his arm, asked him, what's wrong with it? The old man was stunned. He was turning his head. When I looked back, A colleague above said to him urgently, "Come on, ghosts." The old man couldn't help but think, maybe nothing happened afterwards at all. Maybe he has always been at number 37 Linjia's high. The old man said, "It seems that all these years have been in vain. Or what has happened over the years? It's just his hallucination." So he rushed to the second floor. His two colleagues. Seeing this, he also followed up to the second floor. The lights on the second floor went out for a moment. When the lights come back on, they saw a man standing in the middle of the living room on the second floor. The old man recognized. This person is the Night Immortal Kingdom. There is also a large mouthful of steel next to the Night Immortal Kingdom. There are a lot of weird mosquitoes carved into the steel. The old man said, "This is the same as the old man dug up the stone. Carved things are very much like likenesses." The Night Fairy Kingdom looks as if it is talking to someone. The old man looked in the direction he was speaking. Suddenly, I saw the place where the Night Fairy Kingdom was talking. A woman and two children appeared. Yixing will let them walk into the tank, then laughed, "So that we are together forever." These scenes followed. It shook like a movie image. It's gone, and the second floor is still dark. The old man wanted to turn on the flashlight to see the situation, but he just moved. I tripped over something. At this time, he happened to turn on the flashlight. It turned out that it was the internal copper car that tripped him. This time, suddenly, a hand reached out from the darkness. The copper cart was lifted. This hand sucks in white until it is almost transparent. The old man said, all he saw was that hand. But they didn't see anyone. A colleague's voice came from downstairs. It turned out to be a colleague waiting outside. Look at how long they haven't heard from. And he rushed in. The old man turned his head. The hand was gone. The inside of number 37 Lin's house is brightly lit, and the two colleagues who rushed upstairs with him. It looks like it's business as usual, as if nothing was being seen. Nothing happened. The old man completely understood at this time. It turns out that what happened after that was all fantasy. Or rather, someone show him what hasn't happened yet. And during this period, he has actually been in the Lin family mansion all along. The members of the task force are up and down, blindly collecting evidence. The old man looked at his watch. November 14th, 1958. 2:30 in the morning. Here. I'm even more confused. I asked the old man, so what happened in the last decade? Is it all fake? The old man did not answer. Go on. Later we went back to the bureau. I made a report. Some of the fantastical events are described. As a result, a large vat was dug 3 miles underground in the Lin family's house. But inside the vat were 3 corpses with their heads cut off by a knife. After forensic verification, deliberately determined that it was Yixing's wife and children. A few days passed. Inside a small tributary of the Suzhou Creek, someone found Yixing's body. He cut his own arteries and then surrendered to himself. The old man felt even more from then on. It's my own brain that has a problem. But there is something in the hallucination. It is clear and can correspond to the current reality. In order to prove that there is nothing wrong with you, the old man followed the instructions in the vision. I deliberately went to find the person who recruited the cobbler, only to find out that it turned out to be a leatherman. It's just across the street from the criminal police district. An old cobbler who sets up a stall at the entrance of the alley. Inside the National No. 6 factory, there is indeed a Tua show. But he's a mute. And never married. The house at 139 on Yuan Road. It's because it's always haunted. So no one ever lived. As for the distant CC Mount, this man was a famous fortune teller before liberation. He died decades ago. The psychiatric hospital has never had a person named Mao Weigua. All signs show everything is an old man's illusion. The old man had been feeling a headache at that time, so he drank a lot. It's very bitter. I can't figure out why it all looks like it's true. One evening, he went to the cozy store next to the cinema and bought some pig ears and a bottle of Panda Drive. A man walked to the Suzhou Creek. I drank it alone. Next to Suzhou Creek, there are only a few faint street lights. The north bank of the river was pitch black. At that time, Suzhou Creek is not as polluted as it is. But the river under the dark curtain is also black. Only occasionally does it pass by. He was drinking. It days. Suddenly, he noticed the wooden stick beside him. It looks familiar. Take a closer look. It turned out to be the wooden stick that the distant sea mountain gave him in the illusion. By this time he had already drunk too much. A man yelled at the river. Yi Xianghua, I see what other tricks you have. You're going to turn me into a psychopath. I'm going to chase you too. Yi Xianghua, you give me a death. After he finished yelling, suddenly I saw the dark water. The waves are slowly parted. Yi Xianghua stood on a floating tomb. Look at him, the old man said with a smile. Yi Xianghua, you're dead. And turn into a ghost. Keep coming out and scare me. This time, the old man drank too much. He said himself, I'm not afraid of anything at all. Yi Xianghua did not answer. Still smiling eerily. Look at him. The old man picked up the stick and threw it over. Yi Xianghua caught the stick. Laughed. The old man asked curiously, What do you thank me? Yi Xianghua replied, Yuan Haitian has been dead for so many years. There was also a bureau to tell you these things. Then I get the sword of 10,000 flowers today. It's also providential. The old man asked, This stick is the sword of 10,000 flowers. The sword of 10,000 flowers is not a sword at all. I didn't expect that. Yi Xianghua laughed. So how do you explain your corpse? What happened to me was true, which are false. Yuan Haitian has been dead for so many years. And how did he do all this? The old man was a little devastated. I asked all the questions. Yi Xianghua probably got what he wanted. Quite in a good mood. One by one replied, Yuan Haitian didn't tell you. Am I a soldier? Your so-called corpse. It's just one step towards becoming immortals. As for Yuan Haitian, he just disappeared from the world. How can you laymen understand? The old man asked loudly. Then my fantasy thing. Are they all real? Yi Xianghua asked rhetorically. What is true? What is fake? You might as well look at what time it is. The old man looked down at his watch. It turned out to be April 11th, 1968. The old man was shocked and dazed. Yi Xianghua said, However, Yuan Haitian has now been given 9 days. He'll be able to do it. The old man asked blindly, Isn't that a raw dragon deer? Night Ferry National Road. He trapped me at number 37 Linjia's High. The purpose is to get the 9 days. He said what it was. You will believe anything? The old man asked. So what are the things about to ask you? Night Ferry National Road. The art of the Farsi seamount is not troubled. There is no one in the world who can beat it. The truth in it is false. It's clear where you can tell. You must think. I, the Knight Immortal Kingdom, are the ones who are all evil. He is a man who has been dead for many years. So you can't find him anyway. Finally he uncovers your hand again. Use the sword of 10,000 flowers to trap me again. It's a pity that he miscalculated this time. Then the Night Fairy Kingdom laughed. Drifted into the darkness on the water. The old man said. Years later, he could still hear the laughter of the Night Fairy Kingdom. What kind of grievances do the Night Immortal Kingdom and Yuan Haitian have? How did Yuan Haitian lay out this overall situation? The old man said. He could only guess and imagine this. As for why they came to him, he never figured it out. Maybe that's fate. The story of the old man. That's the end of it. After the old man woke up that time, found yourself sleeping on a bench in Zhongshan Park. The sticks are gone. I stared at the old man and asked, And what about later? The old man said, Where there are so many later. But when the Immortal Kingdom left, he stared at me and said, If you feel that you are obligated to infringe on me, then go to the Jade Buddha Temple. Inside the Temple of the Emerald Buddha is under a floor tile. He left me a spiritual rune. That talisman can protect me. He also said, The town inside the Jade Buddha Temple definitely can help me. I asked the old man how to find that thing. The old man only said, I'll tell you when I die. 1989 year. The old man died of lung cancer. He had no children. And about the town inside the Jade Buddha Temple, where exactly is it hidden? He didn't have time either. Speak to anyone.